Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an author making their official debut here on the show. Now, a theater kid at heart, my guest today earned her Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of Victoria in 2013, where she first discovered her passion for storytelling through writing scripts and scenes for class. And during this time, she wrote her first novella, Marvels, which she published in 2015 under her maiden name, which I'm probably going to butcher. I apologize in advance. Joey Baumgartel. I apologize. I butchered that. Today, she works as a registered sign language interpreter, advocating for underrepresented communities. And as a mother of a spirited 4-year-old daughter, she is especially driven to create strong, empowering female characters, ones her daughter can look up to and be inspired by. She currently lives with her husband and daughter in British Columbia, Canada, and I'm so excited to have her here on the show. And in addition, viewers and listeners, this guest will also be joining a roundtable for a future episode in August, which we'll be covering a little bit later. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, author Joey Coleman. Joey, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Awesome. I am so excited to have you here on the show. I've been following your content for a while now, and honestly, so excited and super stoked to have you here.
Yes, thank you. It's also Baumgartel.
Okay. I knew I
They
was
can see
going to
why I
butcher
changed
it.
it.
Okay. Well, thank you for the correction, Joy. I knew I was going to
Oh,
butcher it, though.
everyone does.
All righty. Well, again, I'm so excited to have you here to be on the show and to talk about your book. Speaking of which, you actually have a copy of us that you would like to give a little introduction and teaser to.
I have it right here. This is actually the hardcover copy that I ordered recently.
Ooh,
It's very nice, I know.
that is very, very beautiful. Now, as a little teaser, Joy, without going too much into spoiler territory, what can you tell us about that incredible book and what can readers expect?
Yeah, so The Darkness in Us is the first of a trilogy called the Taylor's Trilogy. I actually started it in high school, and it's morphed into something much different now. It's about a teenager, Natsu, who lives in this magical totalitarian world where there's crafters, people born with magic, and mortals, people without magic. And basically, the mortals are the elite. They are the majority. They control the crafters. So it's about Natsu kind of navigating that world as a teenager. Her father was recently executed
Mm.
about 2 years prior to the story, and she goes on a blind date with her best friend and stumbles upon a dead body in an alley that she realizes is tied to her father's execution,
Oof.
and it leads her into like a murder mystery of sorts.
Oof, my goodness, my goodness. And apologies. Okay, so that is a very, very, very intriguing plot, Joey, and that leaves a lot to what else can readers expect in this world and overall the trilogy as a whole. So before we dive deeper into the story, let's talk a little bit more about you. So based upon your bio, you got into storytelling from, being in theater, writing scripts and doing scenes. And also 2 years after that, in 2015, you published your first novella. At that point, what really, really hooked you in fully to like committing to be a writer? Would you say that these moments were like the beginnings of like your aha, like this is something that you're truly passionate about?
Yeah, I really started like I've always had like a creative outlet that I've needed to use. When I was in high school, I was more of an artist. I would draw. I did a lot of like anime character drawing. I grew up with that genre, that culture. It was very heavily influenced over here, obviously in the West, like all the Japanese culture. So I grew up a lot with like anime, learning to draw, and then I started doing comic books and like manga in that sense. And that's actually where this story started. And then eventually, I was like, well, drawing takes a lot of time and effort, especially like setting up comic books. And so I was like, how can I get this story out without the drawing aspect of it, the time taking aspect of it? So I just kind of migrated into writing. I did a writing course in high school in my grade 12 year and really liked it. And then I just kind of snowballed from there into university.
Ooh, all righty. I like that. I like that. And then, going forward from that, now jumping ahead, let's talk about, the creation of, the darkness in us. So, how did that, come about? How did that particular story come about? Was there like a inspiration tied to it, or was there like a moment in your life that really sparked that, or did it come about organically?
It wasn't really like a moment. It was more of like, because I started it in high school, it was more of like, I wanted to be, it's like in high school, you're always like, I want to be different, but I don't want people to know about it. That kind of feeling like that. Like I grew up with Buffy too, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that kind of feeling where she's like the chosen one and she has this
Hmm.
secret, she's like saving the world on the side, that kind of feel. So I was like, what could I do to kind of go off of that? And like when I started the comics, it was very much in that vein of, uh, there's a girl who's a witch and nobody else knows except her best friend, and then she falls in love with like the new classmate kind of deal. It's morphed obviously into something different, but that's kind of where the story started, was just me and having that feeling in high school of like, I don't want to be a big, like a small fish in a big pond. I want to be different somehow, but I also want it to be a secret because it's more intriguing and fun in that sense.
Awesome. Awesome. So now let's focus on, the overall creation, the bare bones from the very, very beginning.
Mhm.
Now, when you began writing this first book in the trilogy, what was your initial goal with this project? And once you figured it out, what was the promise you were making, not just to yourself, but also fans of the genre?
I think like originally when I was writing these, because I did them in high school and just getting them on the page, I quit doing the comics halfway through. And I was like, you know what? I want to finish this story, but I don't want to draw anymore. So I
Okay.
really just started being like, okay, I want to just get this written. And when I writing it down is what I want it to be done, and then just have it out on the page. I wasn't even considering publishing. I wasn't considering anyone else seeing this except for me and maybe my family. But then I was like, then it kind of morphed into what it is today. And I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a cool story. And I think some people might enjoy it. And I think it also really pertains to like teenagers and a lot of like teenage emotions and angst and the feelings and the hormones and all that fun stuff that we go through, because the magic is really closely tied to teenage angst in a sense.
Yes, very true. Very, very true. Now, in regards to the title, I'm very curious. How did the name of the book come about? I'm very keen to learn about that.
It actually didn't start that way. It started, the first book was called Changes. The second book was called Trapped, and the third book had no title. and and then I started sending it to people, and people were like, "Your title's kind of boring." And I was like, "Ah, okay," because I'm very like, I don't know, I like books that have a very snappy one line, like one word title or one or two word
Right.
title, right? And then I just kind of started like looking online of other popular YA dark fantasy books and um, what they were titled and how they kind of tied together. I also love titles that tie all together. So I've got The Darkness in Us, and then the second one that's coming out soon is going to be The Darkness in Me. And then the third one will have something also tied into that. But yeah, I did not start as The Darkness in Us.
Ooh, all right. I like that. I like that. Now, there's also going to be a few fan questions sprinkled throughout, Joy, and I picked some really good ones that I've gotten over the years. Now, this one, I think every author starts off as this or has asked this numerous times. Are you a pantser or a planner?
I'm a mix.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
definitely a pantser in the sense of I don't like being tied down to timelines. I think I would be a horrible person for traditional in the sense of like, unless I quit my job and devoted all my time to this. But I'm very much like, I get inspiration, I write, whether that's 6 months from now, whether it's 2 months from now or tomorrow. I will not force it. I don't like that. So I'm more of a pantser in that aspect where I'm like, I'll feel like writing today. Maybe I'll write a few chapters and then I'll stop for a while. But I also am a planner in the sense I usually have the beginning and the end in my brain, and the middle kind of just figures itself out as I go.
All right. I feel you. I feel you.
Mhm.
Now, the next question is another fan question. When you got started writing this book, what really surprised you about, writing in a much bigger format, or as you mentioned earlier, transitioning away from the comic mindset to a full-on novel mindset?
Yeah, it was a huge undertaking because, again, I did this so long ago when I just did not have any skills as a writer whatsoever. So it started very amateur-ish. It was more focused on the romance as opposed to the coming of age of Natsu and her emotional roller coaster that she goes through in this book. And just her story overall, because she's very much the reluctant hero. It's a coming of age book. It's the first book is her kind of just navigating her father's death. The second book is her figuring out herself as an adult. And then the third book kind of gets more into the political aspect of the ending. But it was me trying to switch my headspace from just like fluffy writing to something that has meat and something that people can actually take with them and learn things from potentially and
Right.
escape with. Yeah. So it didn't like it was a very big undertaking, as well as like I finished the writing of the first drafts when I was in my early 20s, and like going back and looking at that, I'm like, this is the worst writing ever. I've had to rewrite so much of it, and I got to a point where I was like, should I just scrap this and rewrite the whole thing? But I buckled down and I got through each chapter very strategically, and then eventually gave it to an editor who polished it up at the end.
Very nice. And working with editors and collaborating is something we're definitely going to be touching on when we get into my favorite segment, which is the business side of being
Mm.
an author. So now sticking with another fan question. This one may kind of border on spoiler territory, Joey, so you can give as much or as little. Now, in the first book, who has been your favorite character to write, and which character caused you the most grief? And with all that said about your characters, how did you write them to feel authentic and not just, thematic or trope type characters?
Yeah, I excuse me, I Natsu is very much myself. Like she's got so many aspects of me, of who I was in high school, who I wanted to be when I was that age. So I connect to her the most, and like I've been with her for over 15 years now, writing her. But the one I actually have more fun with is Suta, is um, the spunky little new classmate that comes in and ends up being her investigation partner. He's really fun. I like writing male characters. I don't know why. I find that they can be a little bit more sassy and fun. So I liked him in just like that intriguing aspect, and figuring out the mystery behind him. So he was a lot of fun. The one that gave me the most grief actually was Mom. Mom gave me the most grief when I started writing these books before I
Mm.
became a mother. Everyone was like, your mom is like, the mom character is very in the background. She kind of just pops in. She does nothing. She floats out. She's so stagnant. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I don't really want like a mom in this story, but at the same time, she's 17. So she needs to have a mom there. And when I went back and did all the rewrites after I became a mother, I was like, this is not how a mom would act. She would punish this child. So I added things like that. And I added a lot of really sweet scenes between Natsu and her mom, and a lot of people picked up on that. So many people commented being like, oh, the scenes with Natsu and her mom are like so tender and so loving, and they really stood out to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad that I fixed that.
That's
Um,
good. That is very,
yeah,
very good to
and then I
hear.
think like getting non-stagnant characters, I think having the theater background really helps,
Mm,
because when I picture the characters and the dialogue and everything, I think of it in like a theatrical sense. So a lot of people have mentioned like my dialogue is natural and organic, and it feels natural to a person. And I'm like, oh yeah, because that's probably from the theater background.
absolutely. I kind of have a similar thing when it came to like writing my fourth book, Decimus, the Wolf of Rome, and it was a father character, the main character Decimus, and his son Justinian, who is around like 6 or 7 years old. And in the original draft, I never really specified his age initially, but I gave it like he was like a young kid, but he spoke like a teenager or like a young adult, and it's like that's not going to be believable. Okay, the giant
Yeah.
wolf into battle, maybe like a stretch, but like, this kid who's supposed to be, the same age as his love interest, and they're speaking very eloquently. Yes, with the girl, she's from like a more educated background, so she's going to talk a little bit different than him, but still, they're both kids. I struggled with that
Mhm.
initially of how do I write him as a 10-year-old. And it only wasn't until after that I aged him up in the story as the story progressed that he was like maybe like 16, 17, almost a man in the book, that now I can go back to how he originally spoke. But that was such, that was such a
It's
difficult
hard if
thing to
you don't
do.
have that experience. Like Natsu has like a younger sibling who's like 3 now, and now I have like a 4-year-old child. So I'm trying to like take her dialogue and put it into the character as well, but like also getting the story across and the feel of the scene across, but having like
Mhm.
a kid language and like a kid voice in there. It's tough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as you went about, initially going back to the comic years and then going into the novel years, I'm very curious. At what point did you ever have this thought, or did this thought ever appear into your mind of, am I, truly an author or a creator? And the reason I bring this up, Joey, is that I've had a lot of guests on the show talk about, their experiences with, sharing the inner workings of their mind to, friends and family. And some people are very quieted people. They're very closeted individuals. They don't want to share with friends and family what they're working on. And, being an author, being a comic writer, is probably in the creative sphere one of the most lonely feelings
Mm.
in the world. It's so much time dedicated with no guarantee it's going to be a success in the long run. And when you tell people that you are either an author or you're a comic writer or comic artist, there's a stigma, unfortunately, that's still present of whether you are an independent or small press or hybrid. But if you say that, oh, I'm a comic artist for Vertigo, I'm a comic artist for Dark Horse, the reactions change. Same thing with being an author. If you say, oh, I'm published with Macmillan or HarperCollins or Penguin Random House, reactions change
Mhm.
like immediately. And it's such a shame because, in recent years, indie creators have almost matched traditional publications, but that stigmatism still exists. So
Yeah.
for you, Joey, in your career, did you ever have that thought enter your mind at any point? Or even if you didn't experience it, were you at least aware of the stigma that did surround indie creatives?
Yeah, for sure. I also like this. I never really was serious about doing any of this until a few years ago, and I didn't even know what an indie author was. I was just writing. And then I started doing more research into it. Tried querying the book before it got edited and everything, and it was polished and it didn't go anywhere. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. And then I really started researching what indie author meant, because back when I did Marbles 10 years ago, it was considered self-publishing.
Right.
Yeah, so it had like different name of it, like the indie author wasn't quite a name. And I just started doing research into it and I was like, "Oh, this is something that I could potentially do." And it took a long time for me to actually get into that business mindset of it. It's a lot of work. But I don't like it is very nerve-wracking to send your work to anybody besides friends and even to friends and family. People will ask me, "Oh, what's your book about? Oh, how are you doing?" And I get so I shut down. I get so nervous about it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and I think that's natural for a lot of people because it's something that you're very passionate about and it's something that you've put a lot of work and time into. And if someone comes back and says they don't like it, it can be a bruise to your ego. Um, so it's definitely the stigma around that. But since I've been online and researching indie authors, I've seen so many things that I've just like never considered in the traditional publishing world, people doing really awesome things with their books. And I'm like, how are you doing this by yourself? So it's very much a lot more work on our end than with a traditional publishing agency. And I
Mhm.
think that's something to be, acknowledged and recognized that, yeah, we're doing everything by ourselves essentially, unless we hire out. And I think that's, we need praise for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when did you tell friends and family that you were working on this project? And once you did publish, the first book in this trilogy of yours, from a reader's point of view, what have the reviews been like? Positive, critical, or 50-50?
I told my family and friends like near the beginning, especially like my dad has been very much, he's a businessman. He is very mindset on do your research, crunch the numbers, get everything in order, and then dive into it. So I always go to him if I have something like legally or businessy that I need to discuss or run by him before I dive into something. So he knew pretty quick, and they've all read the first few drafts when I was in university. Um, the reviews actually they started very poorly
Mhm.
because I did um, the arc through Book Sirens, and there were some people who were it was just not their thing, and they actually did give really good feedback, and it was all very similar feedback. It was like three or four arc readers, reviewers, and they gave very similar feedback, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I need to go back and I think I need to fix these little sections that they've mentioned. I went back and I fixed those sections, and the reviews have been great since then. Again, there's going to be a few people who are not into it or it's a little young for them. It's definitely not like a romantasy, what you're seeing really snowballing right now, adult, huge gore, lots of explicit scenes, nothing like that. It is very young mindset because I did write it as a high school story. So some people don't like that. And I try to emphasize that before someone picks up the book, just because I don't want them to go in with, oh, this is going to be another awesome dark fantasy with lots of gore and, sex scenes and all that fun stuff. And then they get hugely disappointed that it's not. Um,
Mhm.
so I try to emphasize that beforehand. But since I tweaked those scenes from the ARC reviews, I've had really good reviews since then.
Nice. That is absolutely amazing to hear, Joey. And now we go into what I like to call the reflective aspect of being an author. Now, these set of questions are very loaded because they touch on the notion of what does it mean to be an indie author in the digital age, in the age of information and social media, because it has changed. The field has changed a lot for authors as a whole. Because we look back 20 or something years ago, small press and indies were seen as a lesser form of publication. Well, with the rise of social media and the internet, it's changed the game for everybody. Social media is a way for authors to connect with their readers, to promote their events, their in person signings, and stuff like that. but it also heightens our imposter syndrome, our writer's block. And unfortunately, coupled with the rise of AI, we're now seeing, unfortunately, on social media, the rise of the AI witch hunts, where authors
Mhm.
are accusing other authors of, using AI either for their cover or in their, writings. And some authors have had to go on, social media to say, like, I'm not using AI whatsoever, and having their artists brought on camera to do a live commission just to prove it's gotten very, very, very ridiculous. So let's start at the very beginning of this. So for you, Joey, when you got started creating your social media presence, what still disciplined you to not get lost in the void of social media, because it is a double-edged sword?
Yeah, I'm like I am very anti-tech, not a huge tech person. Like I'm like a 98-year-old woman in my soul. I just I don't I will put off technology. I was the person who was like in grade 12 when I first got Facebook. I didn't get Instagram until I started doing this a few years ago, and I'm in my 30s now. So I'm very like stern on like technology. I don't want to do it and I don't want to deal with it. So I was very naive going into all of it. I didn't really know a lot going into it. And I actually found when I started my Instagram account, I think I started it 2 years ago, just before it was about 6 months before I published The Darkness in Us. So yeah, I was just went into it blind and was like, I hope it turns out okay. And I was quite naive. And I've actually had a lot of really nice, supportive people and found a lot of great communities out there, and just stumbled upon them. And I think I've been very lucky in that sense that I haven't had any sort of witch hunts or anything against me yet, knock on wood. So it didn't really bother me going into it because I wasn't really aware of any of it beforehand.
Very well said, Joey. Very well said. And ultimately, with social media, everyone trying to write for, the tropes or the clicks or the trends that are happening in the publishing industry. What is your why? Why do you write the stories you write?
I just write whatever comes into my brain. I'm very, again, that's probably the pantser in me. This was happened to be the first book that I've indie published, and it was because it was the longest one that I've been working on. It happened to be a fantasy. I don't usually write in fantasy. I have other regular general fiction novels. Like my novella is just a general fiction, speculative fiction. And I just kind of go whatever route and where inspiration hits. So I do have a few fantasies, but I also have other genres as well that I like to dabble in and have fun in. So it's more for me. And then if people end up liking it, that's awesome. And if they don't, that's okay too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's talk about probably the two biggest things, which is writer's block and imposter syndrome. And I would like to hear your thoughts on this question. Do you believe that social media has only increased writer's block and imposter syndrome for authors, especially emerging authors, in the industry?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that people can see themselves online as well as in their own world. Like I try to keep my personal life very private online. Like I don't show my family, I don't show my child. I think that's all things that aren't necessary as a writer. And I think you can present yourself in a certain way how you want to. I'm also in the sense of like I don't really care what other people think. I've always had that mentality. Maybe that's the theater in me, is that I just don't really care. If people are like, "Oh, well, you seem very childish or whatever," and I'm like,
Mm,
whatever. But I think there are a lot of, especially like younger writers out there who are just in that mindset of like making it big and being influencers and wanting to be popular. Like I work in the school system and I'm in a grade 1 classroom, and like so many kids, I ask them, what do you want to do with your lives? And they're like, I want to be a YouTube star. I want to be an Instagram influencer. Right. So it's
Right.
very different than when we were growing up, and we were like, we want to be doctors and vets and other actual careers, but they all
Yep.
want to do the online thing and get that fame and that money because they think it's easy, and it's not.
Mhm.
So
That is
I think
very
it's
true.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely changed like the younger generation's mentality of it. Whereas I'm in my 30s, I don't really care anymore. Like I have a job, a full-time job, I have a family, I have a life in my personal sense, and then online is a lot of fun and it is a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I get to probably one of the biggest questions. This is a two-parter. And it talks about the notion of, if you look back at, the lockdown years, that was, a period where a lot of authors got their start. I myself included. I began taking writing seriously. And I want to say, yeah, the beginning of the lockdown periods. I wrote all of my stories, all four of my books in the initial form during the lockdowns, like one right after the other, and got them published. Two were published in the same year, which I will never do again because I don't recommend that. I didn't know anything about marketing
That's
at
a
the
lot of
time.
work.
Yes. And then, a lot of people have argued that because of COVID and because of the lockdown period, um, we've seen a rise in indie creative, not just authors, but narrators, artists, and editors, which is amazing. And this has led to the notion at the time that we are in a golden age of creatives. But with the rise of AI taking form and becoming a precedent in the indie publishing world and also the publishing world as a whole, this has led to a debate of, are we still in a golden age, or have we teetered into more of a cyber dark age? So,
Mm.
Joy, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. And from your experiences, do you believe that we're still in a golden age, or are we teetering ever so closer to a digital, artificially created dark age?
Yeah, like I think COVID, I mean, I was pregnant and having a baby during COVID, so I didn't do any creative stuff. But I think COVID definitely uh, heightened technology in the sense that people obviously were just sitting in their houses and were just online and on devices for however many months straight. So we were able to kind of advance in that sense. And I think that's where AI really shot out into the stratosphere, and people were really recognizing it and getting to know what it can do and what it can't do. And I've only really seen this recently, I would say in the last few months, where there's that like AI witch hunt. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's always kind of been in the background, but it hasn't been like people accusing others of it. And I think that is scary in the sense of like you're just trying to get out there and be creative, and people are accusing you of essentially lying and not doing what you're saying you're doing. Um, so I think we're teetering on the edge of it. It is really great that everyone has figured out all of these technological avenues of getting into the publishing world without traditionally publishing, being an
Right.
indie author. But then again, you have the people who will take advantage of that, who there's always the scammers, there's always the people out there who are like, I can do this for you. And you just really have to be cautious with that. And I've stumbled a few times with it, not exponentially, luckily. But I have definitely come into contact with scammers and people who are
Mhm.
saying that they're going to do something for you when they definitely will not. But I've luckily figured it out before anything detrimental happened.
Absolutely. As one of my friends said, it's never been more easy to publish, but it's never been more difficult to market and promote ourselves, because we
Mhm.
are not marketers, we are not business people. We all have to become that. And that now segues into my favorite set of questions, the business side of being an author. Now, Joey, once, of course, you worked with your editor and you got your book polished and ready for publication. What really surprised you about that aspect of being an author? And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
I was very lucky when I found the people that I found. I went on Fervor. I don't think that's how you say it, right? Fiverr, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I was looking specifically for Canadian people because I just didn't want to pay the exchange rates of getting American professionals. So I found my editor as well as my book designer, the cover designer on there. And I was very lucky that they were really authentic and caring and nice people, and actually people that they said they were going to, that they did what they said they were going to do. But yeah, Michaela Choi was my editor, and she honestly, I sent the book in and I was like, this is not the best writing, because again, I had to navigate going from like 20-year-old writing into 35-year-old writing, and it's
Mm.
very matured since then. And so I gave it to her hoping that she could polish it up and make it look really nice. And she did. And it, like, when she sent it back, I was almost in tears. I was like, this actually feels like a real book you would see on a shelf. So I think that was the last step that I needed. So I definitely wouldn't have changed that. And I'm going to be using her again for all of my fantasy stuff.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I wouldn't change that. I was very lucky that I found her.
That's amazing. And I think you're the next author that has mentioned, I think it's called Fiverr.
Over? Okay.
I think that's what it's called. Because yeah, everyone's been using Fiverr as of late for looking for editors, cover
Hmm.
artists, developmental editors, and more. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. So now let's talk about another aspect of the business, and that is knowing our audience. Now, we're authors. We write the books predominantly for ourselves because we know it better than anyone else.
Hmm.
But when we publish it, that's when we have to take into account who exactly are we writing this for. Now, many authors still hold to the mindsets like, I'm not writing this for an audience, I'm writing this for me. And if people enjoy it, good for them. If not, completely understand. It may not be their cup of tea. But there are those who do the research and really try to figure out, okay, I've written this book. I need to classify it. Where does it fall under? Because just like we're authors, we're also readers as well. And we read books that have either similar flow or maybe going around a similar route. And the struggle that a lot of us authors have, whether you are trad or indie, is you don't want to make a book that already exists,
Hmm.
that's written by someone else, or B, you don't want to write a book that's so new that's going to confuse people. It's
Hmm.
this healthy balance we have to really put ourselves in. So for you, Joey, how did you find that balance for your writing, and B, understand your audience and the genre that you are writing in?
Yeah, mine's when I started writing it again, like obviously I was in high school and it was a very high school storyline. The character is 17, so I had to go that YA route. Um, and I honestly thought it was a little darker and like older in like the Harry Potter sense.
Mm,
But then people started reading it and they were like, oh, this is a very young book. And I guess people have changed in the last decade of uh, probably their censorship and everything has
mm,
changed. Everything seems to be very adult based nowadays. So I guess it is a younger sense, because people were like, oh yeah, this is very like teenager 13, 14, 15-year old reads. And I was like, that's okay, that's fine, I'm okay with that. But when I was writing it, I was thinking it was more like 17, 18, 19, the same as Natsu's age. But I haven't really found that audience quite yet. I've found the adults who enjoy that, and they enjoy that younger read, and they enjoy the escapism of it. But I haven't like gone into high schools or anything and found those teenagers to read it yet. So I'm not sure how to navigate that. I tried to think of a way to do that a while ago, like maybe possibly going to like an anime convention or something.
mm.
They're expensive now.
Yes.
They're very expensive. So I may still do that one day, but like as an adult trying to write for teenagers, like young teenagers, without one, having a teenager, or two, being a traditionally published person to get into the teenager stratosphere. I haven't really gotten there quite yet. And I'm just kind of screaming into the void at adults who just like that younger sense of escapism in a story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this kind of goes into more of a very, very personal question, and it kind of does figure into the business a little bit. And that is, of course, the notion that, as authors, we try to write books or make books, to get to market and to make money. A lot of people do have that mindset, unfortunately. But a thing that I've seen, which I think is very good, and a more important thing that authors should strive for, is we should write books and make books that get people back into, reading. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
know here in the US, we have a very, very high issue with illiteracy. And I've talked to a lot of authors on this and this notion of, we should be writing books that actually help inspire people to pick up reading again. And I know for me, the books that really helped me with not only my writing, but also my reading with the Redwall series as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this question, Joy, how we can look at this, again, from a business sense of like writing books and maybe different types of books, but at the end of the day, have that goal of trying to not only heighten literacy, but bring people back into reading. And a bonus question, in your own opinion, what do you think stops people from picking up books or from reading or continue to read into their adult years?
Oh, sadly, I think it's technology. I think it's just like the overtaking of iPads and computers and laptops and video games and TV, streaming, movies, all that fun stuff where you can just kind of turn off your brain and watch
Mhm.
something. And we're struggling with this now with my 4-year-old who's starting to get into screens. And my husband and I knew this was coming. We're both very in that mentality of we want to limit screens for her because we know the research. We've seen the research on how it can affect young minds. And we're very much in the no technology, as little as possible. She loves books, and we can see that in her creativity already. And it's just amazing to see firsthand. I've also seen this again being in like a school setting. You can
Mhm.
tell the kids who read and the kids who don't read because when they go down to write stories, they just spit out a movie that they've seen. Whereas the kids who read will actually create something and write it down. So I think that is really important. And I think that needs to be more emphasized in especially the school system. It's hard because teachers are just trying to get through and teach them the fundamentals of reading and writing, and kind
Right.
of what you go off and do on your own after that is your choice. They
Mhm.
don't emphasize the love and the passion behind it. So I think that's missing. And obviously, teachers have so much to teach. There's no time to do any of that already. So I think that's kind of up to the parents to influence in the sense of like, put down your screen, let's read a book. Put down your screen, let's do some pretend play. Um, and that I think that's got to be on the parents' shoulders now. And I think that will heavily influence, like, for example, my child will probably be reading well into her adulthood because we've really pushed that. And my grandparents and my parents really pushed reading on us as well.
Absolutely. 100% agree. And on this topic of, reading, I would like to hear, Joey, some of the books that have inspired your style of writing, as well as the authors too, because as I've said earlier, kind of hinted to, we authors are also readers. And in some shape or form, the books we have read growing up leave little imprints in how we write and how we tell stories. For example, I read all of the Brian Jacques Redwall series. I actually read the
Mhm.
last four, I want to say last year to complete the series. Absolutely love those books. Those are the kid version to Game
Yeah.
of Thrones,
Yeah.
which I absolutely love.
My sister
And
loved them.
agreed. And of course, I've read books from Bernard Cornwell, the late Victor Milan, Alan Smale, and Valerio Manfredi, and so forth. And those authors have always, instilled in me a sense of like how to approach stories. But I'm very curious, Joey, what books and or authors have left an imprint on you and how you tell your stories?
Yeah, again, like I didn't really grow up reading a lot of fantasy, which is funny because now I write fantasy. My husband's a big fantasy guy. Like everything he reads is fantasy. I've read a few from him, like The Name of the Wind and The Dresden Files. I started reading those, influenced by from his recommendations. But I've like maybe that's why I write all over the map, because I read all over the map. I love Stephen King. I love Jodi Picoult. I love horror, anything that is has a good story behind it, where it makes you think a little bit more, where it's not just like surface level. Same in the sense of movies, where it's not like surface level gore or surface level romance. There's always an underlayer of it, and that's what I look for in stories in particular. So I don't really float between like a specific person. Jodi Picoult and Stephen King, I would say, are the ones that I go back to. Like I've read all of Jodi Picoult's books. I definitely went and read all of hers because she always has a fun twist at the end, and it makes you think. And that's what I love about her writing style. And Stephen King is just hands down, obviously a phenomenal writer. He always creates very interesting stuff that I'm like, wow, where did you even think of that? Um, so those are the two I would say that I go back to. But other than that, I honestly just like read a blurb and I'm like, that sounds cool. I'm gonna read this today. So I guess it's the mood reader in that sense.
Awesome. All right, Joey. All right. Now we're almost near the end of this incredible author interview, but there are a few last questions I do want to ask you. And this one's actually really a fun one. And I would like to actually give you the opportunity to give a shout out to like any people who have helped you on your journey as an author, people that you haven't already mentioned with.
Yeah, I have like I found a like Canadian a Canadian group of people on online, who there's a bunch of Canadian authors in there, and I like it because again they mention things that are specific to Canada and like the struggles that we go through with the barrier between America and Canada. Like there's a lot of things that we have to navigate differently, just because of the country, uh, and the border and the different laws and rules and all that. So like I've got Mel Britton is one, Nick Young, J.E. Storm. I actually realized she lives close to me in real life. So we actually met in person, which was a lot of fun. Kate Beaumont, Amy Ressa, she was someone I went to university with. We crossed paths at university. Vic Liston. There's like so many people that I've met online, and that some of them I've actually had the pleasure of meeting in real life and have lived close by, but most of them are just online supporters and have helped me kind of navigate the system of being a new indie author and being like, I don't know what I'm doing here on marketing myself, help me. And so some of them will really buckle down and help me create new content, or just be like a supportive ear when I need it.
Nice. Very, very nice, Joey. And as we wrap up this incredible author interview, here are the final two questions. At the end of the day, what do you hope readers will take away from this book of yours? And ultimately, and I think you kind of hinted at this in the beginning, but if you could expand upon it a little bit more, what would be your pearl of wisdom to any aspiring authors or writers in this interview, or people watching this interview right now?
Yeah, I'm hoping that people kind of take away one, the escapism of the book. Like I did really try to write a world where you could dive into. It's not too complex. It's very similar to our own world, and like the magic system and everything. People have said it's very unique, and it's a fun book where there's a lot of action. It's a murder mystery. There's some mystery. There's some twists. You might guess some of them by the end. Hopefully you won't guess a few of them, but it's just that like that down and dirty with reading a book and escaping into the book. That's what I want for people. And I have had some people who have said, oh, I've read this in one sitting, or I've read this in a few days, and I just couldn't put it down because I just wanted to be in that world longer, which is kind of what I was going for. I also hope that for like the younger generation, if they ever find it and pick it up, that it helps them come into their own as like a teenager, as an adult, deal with their emotions, because the magic system is very based off of hormones and emotions and puberty and all the fun feelings we go through as teenagers before we hit adulthood. So I'm hoping that that for teenagers will resonate with them. And then for new authors, I mean, I would just say write. Like, it's silly, but just write. Like, don't do it because of fame. Don't do it because you want money. And if you're doing it for those reasons, you're not going to go anywhere. Like, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, do it for yourself. Do it because you love it and it's a creative output. And if it does go somewhere, awesome. If it doesn't, you need to be okay with that, and okay to like open to feedback and criticism, and sometimes very harsh criticism. So I've been lucky in the sense that I haven't had a ton of that yet. I'm sure it will come, but I'm also not, a super popular indie author quite yet. But you have to let that stuff go at the end of the day and be like, it's not going to bother me. It's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me better. It's going to change how I write, how I appear online. If I made a mistake, I own up to it. But yeah, just writing and doing the research beforehand. Give yourself a lot of time to do the research before you jump into it.
Well said, Joey. Well said. And on that note, everybody, we conclude another amazing episode here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to Joy for coming on the show, making her official debut, and hopefully not the last. Now, Joey, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out, as well as buy a copy of your book?
Yeah, I primarily on Instagram. Again, I don't really like technology, so I don't do like all the different things. I don't do TikTok. I don't do I have Twitter, but I don't really use it. Instagram is the one that you would mostly find me, and Facebook as well. At Joey Coleman Author would be where you would search on Instagram and Facebook. And then I have my own website, colemanbooks.ca, where you can purchase the beautiful hardcover if you want this version of it. Any online stores, Kobo, Amazon. I'm with Draft2 Digital, so I have many different online avenues where you can purchase the book.
Nice. I will link that all down below in the description of this video. And as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, viewers and listeners, this will not be the last time you see Joey on the show. She'll actually be making her return next month, being part of the August roundtable, which I will be making the announcements of those guests closer to the end of the month of July, before the beginning of August, with the release of the newsletter. Now, some of these people you've seen in previous solo interviews, and together they'll be making their collective appearance, and I am so excited to have them back on the show. A lot of people enjoy the roundtables. You all seem to love the roundtables, viewers and listeners. So if you like to see the roundtables continue, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions that you would like me to ask Joey, as well as the other incredible people who will be joining her on the 14th in August, like this video, comment with your questions down below, and I'll make sure to ask them in the episode's release. And again, thank you all so much for joining us for another amazing episode. A huge thank you to Joy for coming on the show. Can't wait to see her back in August. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. We'll see you all next time.